Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Asked is the only tool to access live People Also Asked data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
Hello. I've got to be energetic now. I feel like everyone should do a stretch or something because you've been sat down for 40 minutes. I hope you're not asleep. Okay. Why am I showing you a picture of a guy covered in literal bullshit? Partly to brag about the fact that we won an award last year, Marketing Week Campaign of the Year, so we're amazing. But essentially, this is going to encapsulate my talk today. It's using the power of human creativity alongside our skills around performance and paid media to generate better results. Who, hands in the air if you can be bothered to use them, who feels like this guy when they open LinkedIn? I do. Fucking hate it. The reason I hate it is because I just feel like you are falling behind constantly. Like I get anxiety. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to open it. Some agencies won some awards or some new AI tools come out. Primarily AI that I'm worried about. Although if you look at this picture, which was created by AI, there's about 1 million keys on the keyboard and there's like a creepy man outside the window. I didn't ask for that. So it's not that capable yet, but it's obviously getting there. I think we spend a lot of our time, I personally spend a lot of my time worrying about what's changing and feeling like that guy on the previous slide, but what we don't spend enough time doing and what no one really teaches you when you come into PPC, and I wish I was taught this stuff 15 years ago, is what isn't changing. What are the fundamentals behind paid media campaigns and what makes them successful regardless of the technology? Because we are living through a technological revolution right now, and I feel like all the shit we've seen in the last 2 years with generative AI, we were ahead of the game, I think, in PPC. We experienced it with smart bidding 5 years ago, or I don't know how many years ago it was, a long time. But yeah, we need to talk about what won't change. So we will talk about what's changing first, just to summarize it. There's two areas that I think are being disrupted by generative AI. The first one, the obvious one, is I don't want to stand on the screen, the technological side of things. So the ability for us to now create things more quickly. We're seeing democratization of tools and technology. We are gradually seeing the things that we used to do maybe 2-5 years ago were eroded by the robots. They're taking over a lot of it. Most of it is machine learning. Most of it is automation. So we're trying to leverage that. And the role we now do is slightly different, well, massively different. We're also seeing user behavior changes. So we're seeing platform disruption. We're seeing the rise of answer engines. We're seeing Google, which probably makes up the majority of your budgets as PPC marketers, shitting themselves, to be honest. They are seeing the biggest threat to their traditional search business model in years. And you'll have noticed, obviously, with the rise of ChatGPT, Perplexity, and these other answer engines, there's a fundamental change in how people are actually discovering information online. It's not necessarily about 10 blue links anymore. It's about the fucking answers there. I'm just going to make it easy for myself. Our old boss, Julio, now claims he doesn't use Google anymore. He doesn't use search engines. So there's obviously extreme cases of like tech enthusiasts just wanting to go ahead of the game. But I do think this is going to continue to grow. What that means for people in paid, and obviously SEO, is organic real estate is diminishing. We're seeing AI overviews take over as they try and keep up. We're seeing them test AI mode in labs at the moment. So God knows what's that going to do to like ad space and ad slots for us as things change. So there's a real need to diversify and understand what the bigger picture is for paid. We're also seeing paid media move from probably the basement, maybe when I first started in it, like some sideshow when everyone cared about traditional marketing, there was a digital team. It's now the main event. Most of the budget now goes into digital, not traditional. So we're having to have more conversations as agencies, and probably a lot of you in the room as marketers at the C-suite. We're having to debate the CFO about marketing spend. We have to validate results and talk about measurement because it's getting way more difficult. So what that means is you need to develop better consultancy skills to be able to have those conversations at the boardroom or for someone who's going to turn up. And I think I've talked about this a few times, but the role that we all play in paid media is gradually shifting away from optimization. Obviously, the talks we've seen so far, there are still buttons that we can pull. There's strategic things we can put in place to optimize campaigns. but we're moving more into this consultancy element. The roles that we recruit for at Hallam, and there's many people in the paid team at Hallam in the room, are more consultative, strategic roles in an agency, because that's what clients want. They think they probably can't do it all, but they think that they can do a lot of the left-hand side themselves, and they're seeing AI enable them to do a lot of the stuff on the left-hand side. So if you want to move into that consultative, strategic role in the future, what do you need to know? Like, where do you start? And this is the stuff I talked about. It's not really taught to anyone when they first start paid. It's like there's articles all over the place, there's research floating around, but no one really brings it together into anything that makes a lot of sense as a coherent set of principles. So I've done my best to pull together within 20 minutes, because I probably could have done an hour on this, what I think the 4 best principles are to teach you guys that are going to drive effectiveness over the next few years, regardless of change in technology. The first one, incrementality, and the fact that, escaping this ROAS trap that we typically fall into working in PPC. Again, if you can be bothered to raise your hand, I imagine surely everyone's going to raise a hand. Who's been asked this question before by a colleague, the boss, a peer, when you're launching a campaign? Okay, probably not by Ricky Gervais, but we'll move on. It's the wrong question. It's a misleading question, and it will often for a number of reasons. So the first reason is because a lot of the time when we're measuring ROAS, we look at digital attribution, we look at Google Ads, Google Analytics, because they're the best source of information for this data. Often they're the only source of information for this data. And what those platforms tend to do is overestimate the impact of paid search, of paid social. It makes us look brilliant, but it makes everyone else in the marketing team and the other investments look terrible. So things like brand TV ads, out of home, podcast sponsorship, radio ads, like they're really, really hard to measure specific ROAS on those investments, which means we don't put much money into them. An example here, I don't know if anyone saw the ad, maybe 2 years ago with Snoop Dogg and Solo Stove. Great collaboration there. I wanted to buy one, but they're pretty expensive. What they did is they fired the CMO about a year ago, and they pulled the Snoop Dogg partnership because they were looking at attribution data. They were looking at digital contribution. They then ran a media mix model and found, actually, this has actually been valuable. Like, we need to bring this guy back. So they brought a CMO back, and they've started the partnership again. So looking at this data can be misleading. The other reason why ROAS can be misleading is because looking at it in isolation leads to restricting your budget. So if you're just trying to get a good ROAS, it's much easier to smash a ROAS target and stay at that on a smaller budget. As you reach the point of diminishing returns, as you start to grow your spend, you can generate much higher net profit, but if you look at the ROAS, much lower. So looking at this figure in isolation while not looking at other metrics can lead you to restrict growth and profitability of the business. We also know, and probably many of us in the room, if you gave Simran a ROAS target, she will smash the target. But if you just gave her a ROAS target, you'll probably do some things that aren't actually going to grow the business and aren't going to deliver incremental growth. So as an example here, I stole this from a guy called Preston Rutherford on LinkedIn a few months ago. So it's a really cool graph. You can see here that ROAS could be really easy to manipulate because you would just target existing customers. You target people who are going to buy for you anyway. You look at brand campaigns, smash that target, but actually, are you driving incremental growth? And the question we need to be answering is, would this sale have happened? And Liam's going to do a fantastic in-depth talk on this tomorrow, so I won't steal his thunder. Would this sale have happened without this ad? How do you measure that? So again, Liam's going to talk about how you're going to measure it tomorrow, so I won't talk about it in too much detail. But running experiments, essentially, A/B testing for ads is how you'd measure it. Isolating different campaigns and testing, has this actually delivered a growth in sales? We often get asked by clients when it comes to measurement, what is the single source of truth to measure ROAS, to measure ROI? What is the single source of truth? There is no single source of truth. Genuinely, I don't think there is. It's a combination of different measurement techniques that we need to look at to actually get the bigger picture, because they'll all tell you different things. So looking at attribution, digital attribution, that's going to give you short-term insight, but what it won't do is tell you what happened with this brand campaign or a TV campaign. Where are you going to get that data? You're going to get that data from a combination of experimentation and marketing mix modeling. So marketing mix modeling is econometrics. For anyone who doesn't know that, you typically run it once a year. It would look at pricing, for example, the weather, if you sell an ice cream, all these different factors that can impact sales, not just your investments in marketing. And it will tell you what actually has driven incremental growth. So to summarize, moving away from ROAS and actually looking at these 3 areas when it comes to measurement is particularly important into the future. The second principle is around this combination of brand and performance, not looking at one or the other, but actually looking at the synergistic impact of running both of them together. If you've talked about brand and performance before, you'll often hear like brand is something over in the corner, some creative discipline that doesn't really deliver revenue. Actually, all marketing is performance marketing. Like brand campaigns are a financial investment, so they should be measured much like we can measure performance campaigns, just that they're a lot more difficult to measure. If any of you haven't seen this, the long and short of it, it explains the difference between brand marketing and performance marketing. The best example of performance marketing obviously is PPC, like running a PPC campaign. This orange graph here, sales activation, is basically performance. That's what they're talking about. So you can turn PPC campaign on and off like a tap, but it won't really show any long-term impact. You might get a massive load of sales, but if you turn it off, no one's going to remember you. No one's going to remember you've showed up for a non-brand search for a laptop. They don't have a clue. What they will remember is this brand stuff. They might see a TV ad, they might hear you on a podcast, they might see you speak at an event, for example. Brand building takes longer to show an impact, but over time it has the biggest contribution on overall sales. There we go. The problem is, because of the last section I talked about, because we're optimizing against faulty metrics like ROAS and we're leaning too much on digital attribution, what a lot of brands do is they put all of their budget into performance, bottom of the funnel campaigns, because that's what's going to show the biggest impact. We worked with clients in the past, I was going to mention the name, but I won't, a big brand who just said, look, we're going to pull all the TV ads because it's really hard to measure. We want to put it into digital because my boss is demanding results. So it's like, don't do that, but fine if you want to. So they put it on performance and then it failed. Growth plateaus, because if you think about it, you've kind of harvested all the demand in your industry. You've smashed all the non-brand stuff. So what do you do to go beyond that? That's when you start to layer in leverage brand campaigns on top. So there was a study by Walk and System 1, which I'd encourage you all to read about a couple of months ago. It's a really detailed PDF to download, called the multiplier effect. And they assess loads of brand spend, brands that just invested in bottom of the funnel performance marketing like PPC, and those brands that invested in brand campaigns and brands that invested in both. And what they found was people who moved from a performance bottom of the funnel strategy only into a mix of brand and performance saw a 90% uplift on overall ROI. And those that moved away, and we've had clients move away from this, like the one I talked about, just cutting TV and radio spend, putting it all into digital, they saw a 40% drop in ROI. So there's many studies that talk about the mix. So like how much do you spend on brand, how much do you spend on performance? That it differs by category, and it really depends on your category. 60-40 is often floated around in B2B between brand and performance, but genuinely you'll be miles away from that. Most clients, even the biggest brands we work with, are like 10% brand, 90% performance. So it's a journey to get that to increase. But the key is obviously start with harvesting the demand. Start by being easy to find online. There's no point spending on a massive TV campaign if someone's going to sit like Solo Stove, if you've not even got an SEO website or you're not visible. Start at the bottom first, make sure you're highly visible. So when you do spend on that campaign, people look for you, you actually bloody show up. Okay, third principle. 8 minutes left, we can do it. 95-5 rule. So this is the importance of influencing both existing demand and future demand. So has anyone heard of this concept of the passive majority in the 95-5 rule from LinkedIn? There's some Hallam heads nodding because we talk about it all the time. But essentially, what this points to is the fact that at any one time, only 5% of your total market are actually looking for a product. So let's say you're trying to sell shoes. Only 5% of people who can actually want to buy shoes will be looking at any one time. The rest of them are just like, oh, my shoes are fine. Don't need me for months. In a time of an economic downturn or a recession, that number goes down to 1%. So only 1% of people in the market are actually looking. That might happen in a few months, thanks to Big Trump, but we'll see. The worry is most brands put their money into the here and now. They want to show quick returns. They don't invest in future demand, the people that might be looking in 6 to 12 months. That's a mistake, because there's a lot of research that points to the fact that actually investing in that future demand is the real way you can actually be on someone's shortlist and be chosen as a brand. This is B2B focused, but it does apply to B2C as well. So there's a study a couple of years ago by Google and a company called Bain, and they found that even before a brand becomes in markets and before they start actually looking for a solution, they have a set of brands in mind. So 86% of these brands already had a list of people in mind before they started looking. And of those people, 93% of times they purchase from what's called this day one list. So if you're not building future demand with those people who are not actually looking today, you're far less likely to be the chosen product or brand when it comes to the decision process. Hidden buyers. If you're in B2B, how many people are in B2B versus B2C in the room? Okay, probably about half, maybe, nearly half. There's a concept that LinkedIn introduced a couple of months ago called hidden buyers. And what they found was, obviously, it's quite obvious when you go into B2B, like, okay, I know who my target audience is. As an agency, I'll target head of digital, digital marketing managers, anything to do with marketing and digital. I probably won't be targeting procurement managers, the CFO, the CEO, all these other people. They're what's called the hidden buyer, what LinkedIn referred to as a hidden buyer. People who obviously have an influence on the decision-making process, but they're not really being spent on when it comes to advertising. What LinkedIn found was actually in all these successful purchase decisions, only 4% of the time did only the recommending people, the recommending function of the brand. So let's say 4% of the time where the hidden buyers didn't know was that purchase successful. 81% of the time when the hidden buyers actually already knew the brand. So you really need to be influencing a broader set of people, not those that are quite obvious to you, which relies on brand building. Very complicated graph, but I'll quickly explain it. So this is what Walker referred to as the marketing flywheel. We've talked about the need to invest in brand. We've talked about the need to invest in future demand. We've talked about obviously the need to invest in performance. What they talk about is the need to obviously these out-of-market buyers need to be influenced constantly by brand advertising. You can do it organically as well. You can do social media. You can invest. It doesn't all have to be media, but you have to do something to influence future demand. What they talk about is when they become in market, because of the multiplier effect I talked about earlier, they'll be more likely to click on your ad. You'll be more efficient. Your campaigns will get better click-through rates, better conversion rates because you are already on the day one list and they're aware of you. If you're not running the brand stuff, you'll end up spending more over time and it will be less efficient. Final, we're on time, brilliant. Well, final point, attention, the need to stand out. And this is certainly in B2B, there's a big need to improve the creative that we run. So there's a concept floated around the last couple of years called the sea of sameness. And the fact that certainly in B2B, many brands look exactly the same. You'll see this in B2C as well. They tend to copy the biggest brand in the category. They tend to copy the color scheme, the creative, the assets, the content. You know, you'll get messages from your boss like, oh, this is what a competitor are doing. You'll feel like you have to do something similar. I think that's what leads to this approach. You can see here in the cybersecurity space, this is 3 of our clients' competitors, all using the same color scheme, all looking very similar. The logos look the same, the ads look the same, the messaging looks the same. They're promoting bloody white papers. Everyone wants to sell a white paper. What do we need to do to stand out? There's a concept to remember called the von Restorff principle, which is the fact that something that looks different in a setting here. So let's say someone, if there's wearing an orange t-shirt, I'd be looking at them. They're going to stand out from the crowd. And that's why life jackets are orange, because it's the opposite color to blue on a color wheel. That's why they do it, because it stands out. But we need to remember that principle when we look at our ads, because we're trying to capture attention. We're trying to be more effective. So do something different to what these clowns are doing, all looking the same. So what we did, we've got a client in the cybersecurity space, and we literally went the opposite. We went contrarian positioning. These ads are all talking about be safe, be secure. We went completely the opposite. It was like, you deserve to be hacked. Pen testing is bullshit. Like, we tried to do something different. And what we found was the click-through rate on the ads was way, way above the benchmark. More people noticed the ads. The brand campaigns performed really well. Obviously, you've got to have the ability to influence the creative to start having those conversations. But as paid marketers, we're responsible for results. So if we're not talking about it, who's going to flag that with the client? And research has pointed to the fact that getting more attention actually influences brand recall. So if you're trying to drive brand awareness, which is an obvious metric to look at brand recall, look at the fact that if you get more attention, people are going to remember you. This is a stat that we've recently released. We launched a white paper yesterday that looked at the impact of award-winning creative. So we looked at all the awards that have been won by advertisers in the last year, looked at drum data, I don't know, well, Gareth will know more, the source of the data. And we looked at the improvement on the share of search. So essentially, who's searching for that brand over time. And what we found was actually technically the most effective ads, so the ones that have won awards and been cited in industry studies, had the biggest improvement in share of search. So another validation that actually having standout creative, award-winning creative will get you better search for your brand. So final best practice when it comes to standing out from the crowd, be distinctive. Like, don't be safe because don't be safe because you just want to look like the biggest person in the market. One stat I didn't have time to run through in massive detail is there's a study that came out which said that if your ad looks like the biggest person in your market, the biggest brand in your market, it will actually be misattributed to that brand a lot of the times. People won't even know it's you. They'll think it's the biggest player in the category. So you're almost advertising your category rather than advertising your own brand. Use emotion and be consistent. Don't just run this stuff for a couple of weeks because it looks different. The mistake we fall into is because we're looking like disruptive creative. We're looking at that, you deserve to be hacked stuff. And the CFO will be like, oh shit, I don't really want to run. I'll maybe put like $5,000 behind it and loads of money into the boring stuff. put it into this stuff and actually get the data in that actually prove results and be brave with it. So to summarize what the future holds for us as paid media professionals, I think it's obvious that the AI co-pilot will get scarier, like this horrible robot face, every year. I think it's going to continue to erode a lot of the doing that we're used to. We don't necessarily know exactly how yet, but every time you log into LinkedIn, something will change and we'll worry and we'll have to evolve as marketers. Things that won't change, those principles I talked about there, we need to make sure we're understanding them, we're applying to our work rather than just getting worried about what the AI will take over. Human skill will still be our competitive advantage. If you understand the principles that I've talked about today and apply similar principles to things like SEO or design, it's not going to take your job. Like, you're going to have to look at what's going on. You have to do the media plan. You're going to have to sign it off. You're going to have to know where to put the budget and why, what creative's going to work best and why. So AI will raise the bar. It will democratize tools and technology, but your skill will still elevate you above others. And there's going to be a need, I genuinely believe, to move from this optimizer role to consultancy in the future. So start looking at this stuff, start understanding these journals and elevate your skills so you're able to have those conversations at the C-level. So summary, 4 principles: escaping the ROAS trap. See Liam's talk tomorrow. Go and learn about incrementality because it's incredibly important. Blend brand and performance. Make sure that you understand the synergistic impact, the fact that if you run both, you will see better results. Understand the importance of out-of-market buyers. Don't just put everything into who's searching right now, because you are far less likely to influence future demand and you're going to be just at the mercy of search demand over time. And then the importance of doing something different, trying standout creative, trying to be contrarian in your market. Look at what your competitors are doing and do the opposite, and I guarantee you will get better results. Gareth put this in, shameless plug. I talked about the white paper earlier on. If you want to download our white paper, there's a QR code there. We'll share the slides afterwards. But this talks about the creativity and the effectiveness of those ads that we talked about on that slide. That is all I've got time for. Sorry about the Nottingham Forest plug, but it's amazing. So if you want to get in touch with us for any help, there you go, QR code. Thank you.